Welcome to On the Prowl Panthers Hockey Talk.
Your home for Florida Panthers talk, reactions, and honest hockey conversation.
Let's get into today's episode.
We'll break down the storylines, the big moments, and what they mean for Panthers fans.
From the ice to the locker room to the bigger picture.
We're covering it all.
So whether it's game reaction, team news, or a deep dive Wegward fee,
you're in the right place.
This is On the Prowl Panthers Hockey Talk.
I am looking at a spreadsheet right now that, honestly, it mathematically feels like a misprint.
Yeah, it's pretty staggering when you actually look at the numbers.
Right. I mean, by December 1st of the 2025 season, the Florida Panthers had lost more man games to top 6 forwards and top 4 defensemen than they did in the entirety of their previous 3 seasons combined.
Which is just a massive statistical anomaly.
It really is. It completely dismantled a Stanley Cup contender before the calendar even flipped to a new year. So welcome to On the Prowl Panthers Hockey Talk.
Glad to be here.
Today we are doing a deep dive into the Florida Panthers 2025 season, just trying to figure out what actually transpired.
And there's a lot to get through.
Oh, absolutely. We've pulled together a huge stack of sources today. Season postmortems, internal roster data, team notes. The mission here is to strip away the emotion. Was this season just doomed for the very start, or did it slowly, agonizingly fall apart because of a staggering pileup of major injuries?
Well, the prevailing narrative is that they just had a streak of bad luck.
Right. But I brought you in, our lead hockey strategist, because when you look at the tape, this wasn't just a string of isolated events. It looks more like a devastating chain reaction.
Yeah, exactly. It was a systemic failure triggered by extreme structural stress. When we examine the timeline, we see that the losses weren't just piling up because of missing talent.
Right.
They piled up because the actual tactical framework of the team was fundamentally compromised. Game after game.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to really understand the collapse, we have to look at the immediate shift from high preseason expectations to sheer survival mode. We have to talk about the first massive crack in the foundation.
The Alexander Barkov injury.
Exactly. Alexander Barkov going down in the preseason, the narrative is always, next man up. But losing Barkov is like removing the engine from a race car before the starting flag even drops.
That's a great way to put it. He isn't just the captain. He's the ultimate stabilizing force.
I mean, the numbers back that up, right?
Oh, totally.
Yeah.
Losing a premier two-way player like that forces the entire lineup to shift. It ruins your matchups, your defensive structure, face-offs, special teams, everything. You have your second-line center suddenly taking defensive zone face-offs against guys like Nathan MacKinnon.
Which is just a nightmare scenario.
Right. And your third-line center is suddenly forced into heavy, grinding minutes. It's a brutal trickle-down effect.
But, I have to push back a little bit here. A great organization should be able to survive one major injury, right? Even to their captain. Was Barkov's absence really enough to sink them completely?
Well, you are right that one injury shouldn't crater a franchise, but they didn't just lose Barkov. That was merely the first blow.
Ah, right. The second shoe to drop.
Exactly. Almost simultaneously, they lost Matthew Tkachuk to a complex surgery, keeping him completely off the ice until December.
Which fundamentally alters the way opponents play against Florida.
What's fascinating here is how these two specific absences compounded each other. Barkov provides the structure, but Matthew provides the team's emotional engine.
Yeah, that attitude. The swagger.
Exactly. The attitude, the physicality, and that net front chaos. The Panthers' offensive zone strategy relies so heavily on generating chaos around the crease. And Matthew is the premier net front presence in the entire league.
You see it on the tape every single shift. It completely nullifies the opponent's ability to easily clear the defensive zone. So missing 2 identity players is an absolute nightmare.
Completely devoid of their 2 most important identity players right out of the gate.
But the real tragedy of this 2025 campaign, it's what happened to the players who were actually left on the ice.
The injury avalanche.
Yeah, exactly. It wasn't just the initial shock of losing those 2. It was a sheer volume of injuries that just destroyed the team's structural integrity.
It was an absolute wave after wave. The insane number of soft tissue injuries, awkward collisions. It wasn't just bad luck once.
Right.
It was a compounding effect. Line combinations couldn't settle, defensive pairings were constantly rotating, and players were forced into roles they just weren't ready for.
It's like trying to build a house during an ongoing earthquake. Every time you pour the foundation, the ground shifts again.
That is exactly what the coaching staff was dealing with. They spent the entire season duct taping the roster together rather than actually building a rhythm.
The emotional toll of that is massive. But someone tried to hold it all together, right? We have to talk about Brad Marchand. He wasn't the official captain, but he really stepped up as a stand-in leader.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture, Marchand's veteran presence was critical.
He was the one barking at guys in practice, demanding that standard.
Exactly. He brought that extreme competitiveness and really tried to steady the locker room emotionally. He acted as the glue when Barkov and Matthew were unavailable.
He kept them fighting, which is a huge credit to him. But even with the veterans setting the tone, there was one specific spotlight moment that finally, undeniably broke the team's spirit.
The Winter Classic.
Yeah. The Seth Jones injury. I mean, let's set the stage. The Winter Classic is a marquee event. It's a major spotlight game, supposed to be a celebration of hockey, right?
Right. And Seth Jones getting injured on that specific stage, it was the symbolic death knell for their 2025 playoff hopes.
It wasn't just another name on the injured reserve.
No, not at all. It was an emotional breaking point for a team that was already running on fumes. Seth Jones was the minutes-eating workhorse of that blue line.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. Because this was the exact moment fans, and honestly the players themselves, seemingly looked around and realized, this just isn't our year.
You could see the air physically leave the bench.
Exactly. But my question to you is, when a team suffers a symbolic blow like that, how do the remaining players avoid just throwing in the towel for the rest of the season?
Well, while the collective playoff hope may have died on that outdoor rink, individual pride did not.
Right. These guys are still fighting for contract.
Exactly. Career survival. And that shift directly leads us to the players who actually rose from the ashes of this disastrous season.
I am so glad you pivoted there, because this deep dive can't be purely negative. We have to find the bright spots. We have to give credit to the guys who answered the bell.
The silver linings.
Yes. Let's start with Anton Lundell. He was basically thrown into the deep end without a life jacket.
And he showed immense maturity. The coaching staff asked him to take on massive responsibilities with the center depth decimated.
He was matching up against top-line centers every night.
And he provided much-needed structure to a highly unstable lineup. His defensive IQ took a massive leap.
Wow, yeah. Which brings me to Mackie Samuskevich.
Yeah, Mac.
When the season is slipping away, you need a spark. And Mackie gave the fans a genuine glimpse of the future.
He really did. He showed incredible growth. Early in the year, he was a bit hesitant, but by February, he was driving the play.
Gaining the blue line with possession. He gave the fan base a reason to be genuinely excited amid all the chaos.
Absolutely. And then you have to look at Carter for HAG.
Carter is the definition of relentless.
Exactly. I mean, I have to praise Carter for his relentless effort and his offensive production. The team was emotionally drained, but he proved himself as a player the fans could absolutely count on to keep battling.
He wasn't cheating for offense. He was playing honest, hard-nosed hockey.
Which is so crucial, and this raises an important question.
What's that?
How a completely lost season can actually forge the next generation of core players. These three, Lundell, Mackie, and Carter, they ensured the season wasn't just a tale of collapse. It was also one of resilience.
That's a really great point. So what does this all mean? When we look back at the 2025 season, it wasn't destroyed by one single thing.
Not all.
It wasn't just Barkov's injury. It wasn't just Matthew being out until December, or the Seth Jones Winter Classic heartbreak. It was a brutal, relentless chain reaction that never allowed the team to find stability.
The structural foundation crumbled, and the system collapsed under its own weight.
Yeah. So we want to hear from you. Was this season doomed the exact moment Barkov went down? Was Matthew's absence the bigger fundamental problem? Was Seth Jones's Winter Classic injury the final undeniable blow? Or was it simply too many injuries, too many times for any team in the NHL to overcome?
It's a lot to think about.
It really is. Thank you for joining us on this deep dive on the Prowl Panthers Hockey Talk. Keep pondering the chaotic reality of the Panthers' 2025 campaign, and we'll see you next time.
That's going to wrap up this episode of On the Prowl Panthers Hockey Talk.
Thanks for spending part of your day talking Panthers hockey with us.
We always appreciate it.
Now we want to hear from you. Drop your thoughts in the comments.
And tell us what you think. Your opinion is part of the conversation. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, subscribe, and follow the show.
We'll be back with more Panthers talk very soon. And as always, stay on the prowl.